Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com here with this week's Friday FNM Primer. This is going to be a weekly series. I'm just going to show you the deck that I'm going to be playing at my local game store. This week is going to be Standard. So I'm going to try the Grixis Prowess strategy. There's a lot of different Prowess strategies at the moment. There is a Temur Prowess, which used Become Immense and Temur Battle Rage to really hook up to like a Monastery Swiftspear or Hooting Mandrills or the Abbot of Keral Keep. You get the added bonus of green is definitely the Become Immense. Become Immense is incredibly powerful in a delve type strategy, and in this type of format with a lot of cheap spells like Expedite that can draw you a card, and then the fetch lands. It's very easy to get the Become Immense fodder in the graveyard. There's also Jeskai Prowess. You get the Monastery Mentor, which can just take over certain games, as well as if you're in Jeskai colors, you have a ton of different cards. You can go like Jeskai Ascendancy or the Mantis Rider or even Jeskai Charm. We are very spoiled to have a ton of different options right now in the format as far as like tokens or prowess or spell-based decks are concerned. And Jeskai has just a multitude of different cards you can use. But the reason why I'm choosing Grixis is the red strategy that also, I think that it's the one where you can pair up the most fetch lands. I say Jund would be the other option, but Jund does have access to like Angler and Hooting Mandrills. I don't think you want like both of them in the same format. And black doesn't get a lot of or black and green, they kind of compete for the same sort of slot, I would say, that adds to this prowess type deck. And I think blue and red by far the more powerful prowess colors. And so you want to stay in blue and red. So I think that it's either Temur, Jeskai, or Grixis. And so far I think I'm liking Grixis the most. So I might change this up a little bit. This is my current list, but I really want to throw Kolaghan's Command in the sideboard as it's a way for me to deal with Hangerback Walker and also get back cards from my graveyard like an Abbot of Keral Keep, and I think it just goes very well in this type of deck. So I think we might just take out a Roast because I've been finding that Roast is actually inferior. Like you usually want to use Roast versus Abzan, but Self-Inflicted Wound does a great job against Abzan, so I think that Roast is just a bit of overkill, and I'm thinking that we might not need the 3 Radiant Flames. The reason I brought the Radiant Flames in the sideboard that I was having a bit of an issue versus like Thopter based decks, a lot of like weird Thopter, World Pro Rogue, Pioneer Noir type strategies. I'd have to draw the Slip Through Space at the opportune time, and it's Radiant Flames was just a blowout because Radiant Flames is amazing in this deck because when you cast it, your Swiftspear and your Stormchaser Mage is going to be over the 3 damage that it's going to do, and the Swiftspear you just have to cast one more spell, and the Swiftspear actually dodges the Radiant Flame. So a lot of times it's a one-sided board wipe, and also gives your creatures this sort of pseudo-unblockable feel when you clear all the tokens. And hitting 3 is very relevant against Abzan because it can clear out the Den Protectors. It can clear out the 1-drop. I can't think of the name at the moment. The 1-drop that gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and also can clear out Thopter tokens quite easily. I don't know if I bring it in versus Abzan. It depends on how they build the Abzan build, but it definitely is in here for those other swarm-based decks. You'll bring it in versus the landfall deck, anything that uses Hordeling Outburst, Gideon type strategies. You can bring Radiant Flames in. So I'm thinking about maybe cutting 1 Radiant Flames and 1 Roast. I think we're going to do that, and then we can bring in Kolaghan's Command. Now this is anything but a budget deck, but you can build a budget version of this with just the blue and red, and it is very, very powerful even without it. But the reason why I like adding Grixis is you're already wanting to run as many fetch lands as possible, and Treasure Cruise is an all-star in this deck. You will go through over half of your cards every game. This feels a lot like Delver in Modern. So let's just go over the deck tech. You're running 16 creatures because the deck is insanely efficient at finding the creatures you need, and usually you'll need about 2 creatures to put significant amount of pressure on your opponent. So we're going to run the Angler. Why I choose Angler is it's in testing, it's just gone above and beyond Tasigur, because the ability to push through a Rhino or block a Rhino, it's just very, very significant. They both do die to Roast, the Angler and the Tasigur, but again, I think that just being able to eat the trade with a Thought-Knot Seer or Ether Rhino is a very significant advantage. That's crazy. One power is that much of advantage over an ability that is very relevant in the format of Tasigur's been good in certain matchups, especially against control. Filling back up my hand with the delve, but I just every time that I cast a Tasigur, I either didn't have the mana to really utilize the ability from Tasigur, or Angler just seems so much better. Now, you might see, wow, you're using a ton of delve. We are. There's a Murderous Cut, there's 4 Treasure Cruises, and then 3 creatures that delve. But I'm telling you, you will have the fodder in your graveyard. So we're going to use cards like Tormenting Voice to find more cards in our graveyard. This will discard our excess lands. We have Expedites and Slip Through Space, Titan Strengths, Temur Battle Rage. These are I'm kind of on the fence about, the Titan Strengths and Temur Battle Rages, because there's some, like, really the scenario you want to see this is on an Angler, so you make it an 8 and then Temur Battle Rage and then 16 damage. Or the Stormchaser Mage is kind of fun too, because it gives him +4 from the Titan Strength, so he's a 5/3, and then Temur Battle Rage will make him up to a 6/3. Also gives you the double strike that helps push through. And so I think just the one of, you never want to see 2 Temur Battle Rages. You'll usually see it by going through the majority of your deck. We have Shu Yun as kind of an alternate way to give things double strike. I don't know how well I feel about Shu Yun. There's been some matchups where he's just been an all-star. Again, after with Slip Through Space giving him unblockable and then being able to give him double strike, you can push through a lot of damage. And it ends up being more of a tempo-based deck rather than more of like a landfall one-turn kill type strategy. So Abbot is also incredibly good. It's just, it finds something off the top of your library, you can always usually cast it. And then just the Swiftspear and the Stormchaser Mage already have haste, so that's why there's only 1 Expedite. You don't want to see a ton of Expedites, because they end up seeming quite weak by just giving a... I use it so often on just like a Swiftspear or a Stormchaser Mage, giving it haste what they already have, and it ends up just being more a cheap little cantrip that gives +1/+1. So since this is a tempo-based strategy, we do have to take care of other people's early-based aggro. So Fiery Impulse is the best card for that. It used to be the opposite. I used to run 4 Wild Slash and 2 Fiery Impulse. Unfortunately, though, I think there is a lot of cards with 3 toughness in the format that are very relevant. One of them being Seeker with a Prowess trigger, or the 1-drop out of Abzan when they pump it up to a 3/3. And you'd be surprised at a bunch of the very significant one is Mantis Rider being a 3/3 as well. And so Impulse is just, I was almost exclusively using Impulse on creatures. Wild Slash I did hit to the face to do that perfect points of damage a few times in the matchups. I mean, it's great versus some matchups, but I was always thinking Fire Impulse for the 3 damage was more relevant. And then a 1 of Murderous Cut is always good too. You have ways to draw out into answers. They have like a big Dramoka that's attacking, or any of the other dragons that you need to delve to, or that are above the 3 power or 3 toughness from the Fiery Impulse. You can easily just Murderous Cut them. So that's what I had roast in the sideboard as well. But I think that most of the decks that roast are good against the Self-Inflicted Wound are just much better. Self-Inflicted Wound ends up being kind of like the Searing Blaze for this deck. It really puts you over the top against the Siege Rhino, as if you have a Swiftspear out, this Self-Inflicted Wound literally says negate Siege Rhino, because it will prowess one of your guys up to do an additional damage, and they lose 2 life and sack their Siege Rhino, which is so significant. You're usually killing them on turn 5. Killing their Siege Rhino, getting through with the unblockable, or that was their plan of blocking the Swiftspear and then pushing through. Act of Treason is also fun to steal a card like a big like Thought Not Seer or Reality Smasher, even though you'd have to discard a card at that moment. I don't think it would be relevant if you're actually taking their big threat. Really, really good against other opposing Siege Rhinos, other opposing Gurmag Anglers. I've used it. I've actually taken a Dramoka with Act of Treason and then just won the game, because it basically acts as giving your creatures unblockable because you're taking their blocker, and giving your prowess creatures prowess, and then taking their big guy and hitting him over the face with it. So just a 1 of Act of Treason is always nice. So this is my plan versus Abzan. These 4 comes in. This is my plan versus Thopters. These 4 come in, and then you take out Painful Truce would probably come out versus Thopters, maybe Tormenting Voice, something to give you some more early game against Thopters. And then against Control, and Absent to a point, depending on how they build it. You might want to bring in Stubborn Denial. Stubborn Denial does great against it. It just messes up curves. Ferocious will happen. Like if you have a Shu Yun or a Tasigur or an Angler, or even an Abbot, a lot of times you can easily get Stubborn Denial up to countering, just plain countering an on-creature spell. But Stubborn Denial just always messes up their curve. If they try to go 4th turn Gideon, you can Stubborn Denial. If they try to go 3rd turn Abzan Charm, you can Stubborn Denial. If they tap out for something and then use like a Dramoka's Command, use Stubborn Denial. It's just a very, 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 very good Force Spike type card that can be a hard counter spell if you have the right cards out. So, I think we've pretty much explained the deck tech. Well, let's go over the land base. You're going to run 22 lands. That seems to be the sweet spot because you do want to have enough targets to hit, and you do want to have 4 to 5 lands out, I think, when you finish the game. You want to hit every one of your land drops, and so 22 is probably perfect with a deck that goes through. Plus, we have the ability for Tormenting Voice to discard excess lands, which will happen a lot. You never really want to discard a spell. You just want to wait till you have the excess lands because you're going to be fetching a bunch of cards right off the bat with the 4 Bloodstained Mires, the 4 Polluted Deltas, and the 2 Wooded Foothills. And that's why we're playing a bit heavier on the mountains. First of all, we use a lot more red than anything. You can see the amount of red sources in the deck. And then the Bloodstains and Wooded Foothills can go get a mountain. Polluted Deltas can go get a swamp or an island or either Smoldering Marsh or Sunken Hollow, which we're going to use 2 of each. And usually, if I see a Monastery Swiftspear first turn and a fetch land, I usually do not cast the Monastery Swiftspear. What I'll do is I'll fetch up like a Smoldering Marsh. And then that way, second turn with Monastery Swiftspear I can put out. You don't need to be hyper aggressive with Monastery Swiftspear. That 1 point of damage is very insignificant on turn number 1. And I'd rather have an untapped mana on turns 2 or turns 3 rather than that first turn Swiftspear. So usually fetch, grab a Sunken Hollow, Smoldering Marsh, and then keep up the Swiftspear for the turn number 2 or the Stormchaser Mage for turn number 2, and then you can start the aggro down. So Duress is just good as a 2 of. I don't like to see so many multiple Duresses. This is good of taking out a crucial like board wipe card or removal spell or Gideon type card on perfectly on like turn 2 or turn 3. I could actually see Transgress the Mind being put in this deck over Duress, as Transgress gets rid of most of the problematic cards, but Duress can also get rid of cards like Fiery Impulse or any one of their early drops that Transgress might actually miss. And yeah, so again, this deck is very good against Jace. We have a lot of Jace hate. There's 6 main board, 7 that can usually hit them on time. And then you can even bring in Kolaghan's Command and Radiant Flames. This is a pretty solid deck. I've had success versus Abzan, a lot of success versus Abzan. Very terrible versus Rally decks. You're going to lose versus Rally. I don't think you can race them, but a lot of times they don't have the flying is key versus the Rally decks because Stormchaser Mage can get through, also slip through space, but I still don't think it's a great matchup versus Rally. But Abzan is pretty decent. Jeskai is pretty decent. You're very similar to a Jeskai Black deck. I like this. I think this deck's a lot faster, and you have answers versus the Jeskai Prowess decks. And then against Landfall, I also think that the main boarded 6-7 removal spell is just really, really good versus Landfall. So all in all, I think it's well positioned in the metagame. It's something fresh for me. I haven't played a Prowess deck in a while, and if you're a fan of the channel, you know that I traditionally, when there is like a Kiln Fiend type strategy in the format, I love to play these type of blue or red tempo based strategy decks. So I'm excited to play this. I'll let you know my matchups. I'll give you like an overview either in the comment section after I play this in tonight's FNM, or maybe we'll do a wrap-up video and tell you how well these did versus the matchup. This is another reason I'm running this is red-based aggro decks are everywhere in my metagame. We have a lot of like Goblin decks. We have a lot of token-based red decks, like Impact Tremor-based decks, and you just have to adjust according to your metagame. We also have a ton of Abzan decks, so I think that this is very well positioned in that type of format. We do have one guy that runs Rally. If he runs it, I think that we might be able to push through, though, before the Rally deck takes charge, so Duress will be key in that format, just hitting that perfect Rally Ancestors Collected company. Anyway, this has been Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com. Thanks for watching.